Hello, everyone. Welcome to a new episode here at lightingbot.com. So, as you know, I am a senior lighting artist and I host Lightingbot to educate and inform through other lighting artists or artists. Just a quick shout out to Turkey Master, our loyal pre notification gang. Thank you for showing up. And Le Biblioteca. Again, thank you for showing up as usual. I hope you have your questions ready because, as you like to remember, if you guys ask the question, I can just relax and you guys run the show. That's always good for me. So I want to welcome. I didn't ask her actually how to pronounce her name, but I'm going to guess it's Yufan or something. Yufan. Definitely, I'm her fan. See what I did there? All right. So let's welcome her. Hey.
That was that was an excellent opener. Yeah,
Yes. Yeah.
yeah.
How do you pronounce your name, by the way?
Well, in Mandarin it's called Yufan, but Yufan
Yufan.
is fine. Yeah, and funnily, I usually go by Linda. I probably should have mentioned that.
No, I
Um,
noticed that in your LinkedIn, I think it was, and
mhm.
in your LinkedIn, you also had this line between your names. I'm not sure which one is actually correct, but
It
as
doesn't
long as
really
people
matter to
know who
me.
you are, it's all
Yeah,
right.
yeah,
You fun, okay?
yeah.
That's nice. I can think about a lot of interesting conversations with that kind of name. You're my fan. I'm your fan. You're fine. I mean, it's a lot of creativity. But back to the main topic. Yufan, who are you?
Well, I am. I consider myself just a lighting artist, and my current title and my job is a cinematic lighting artist. But in general, I think I'm just an artist that happens to focus on lighting in CG world, and I just want to make some pretty things.
Yeah, that makes sense. I also like pretty things, and that's
Yeah.
where lighting comes in, I guess. We all just like to light stuff up and make them look pretty.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so a lot of artists, they tell me, a lot of lighting artists, they tend to unconsciously or very verbally say that they didn't like 3D modeling, they didn't like animation, and that's why they pick lighting because they just want to be at the end of the pipeline, and kind of make things pretty. Is that why you picked lighting, or did you try other stuff as well? Like, have you tried 3D modeling? It wasn't for you, or how was that?
I think it has a lot to do with the education that I got, as well
Mm,
as my personal preference. So I went to SCAD, and I studied visual effects as major. And they kind of separate these disciplines. That the animation is focused on character work, so they did the character modeling and rigging and all that. And visual effects kind of is more focused on just the general 2D work, like environment modeling and look dev and other stuff.
mm,
So I did some 3D modeling and shading and effects itself. But I knew that very early on when I first tried to get into 3D, I found lighting, the polishing part at the end, was my favorite part, even though the other parts are fine. Um, and then later on in my career, I kind of developed physical problems, especially on my wrist. So
mm.
some of the job I had to do, like 3D modeling, that requires a lot of rapid
Clicking.
movement on
Yeah.
my wrist. That is a toll for me. So
Mm.
I know that probably wouldn't pin out well for me. So lighting, I like it, and it's right now. It's just probably something that's better for me too.
Yeah, I mean, I also have this wrist problem, which is why I do yoga and other stuff to kind of mitigate this issue. And you buy like specific mouses, to kind of
Yep.
deal with this kind of thing. Do you have like a normal mouse, or how are you dealing with it? You just have a
I
normal mouse?
have I have a vertical mouse.
Yeah, you too. Yeah.
Yeah.
See, we always already in stuff in common here. We are really relating here, guys and girls. So obviously you're a lighting artist. You're a cinematic lighting artist, to be more specific at the moment. So one question that comes up to my mind just randomly is during the work you do now, how early are you involved in the production? Because a lot of people should you have actually a different point of view and say, okay, lighting just comes at the end of production lighting. But from some of the videos I've seen from your previous colleagues, which is a few years ago, it seems like it starts quite early at some of the studios, in particular the one you are in. Could care to elaborate that? Where does that start?
Sure. I think. Lighting is unfortunately it has a lot of dependencies. So even though when sometimes we want to start early, there's a minimum requirement for us to even get in there. I think at the current place I'm working at, they break things down to like alpha, beta, and gold. So alpha is like the early stages, but it has to be at least presentable. And we get in there a little bit before that. Usually is when they get the basic environment is layout, blockout, and ideally some rough materials in. And the animation will be having mocapped with the characters inside. Sometimes it could be placeholder characters. However, there will be at least like where they will be going, where the camera is. The camera will have at least a pass. And we start that stage. So a lot of time I start with no facial animation, or very rough body animation, and just to get like the blackout and lighting and overall mood, and we start iterating on that. So I would say pretty early. I think as soon as they have something like that, usually lighting starts jumping.
Hmm. That's quite early in the production, then, basically,
Hmm.
pre-production at the very least. So, do any of you lighting artists in any position that you are in do anything like? Are you involved in the mood board and referencing, or color scripts and those kind of things, or is it more you get something? This is what we want, and that's what you got to do. How does that work for you?
I think for most of the places I've worked at, they do have a specific design or concept art department that are responsible for these things. However, those artists usually are in charge of really broad strokes. They'll give you like moments or the ideas and inspirations, and a lot of time, me as a lighting artist will have to interpret or determine if this is actually the best thing to do for my scene. So, in general, we do try to follow the concept art, and but usually, I would say 9 out of 10 times, following concept art is usually is not will not lead to the final result. Some because things will change when things starts moving in the frame, or
I
when
agree.
later on things are the elements are jumping in. There's always going to be a little surprise element. So concept art is a good place to start. But I think later, and then we started. I would also usually research my own references and talk to the concept artist, art director, the lead, just like, okay, this is what I think will work for the scenarios. What do they think? Get feedback. It's kind of iteration process on top of the initial concept art.
So, is there any point in the production where you go like, okay, this is the concept art and it's completely different from the concept art, and it's like, okay, that's totally different, and the art director is okay with it and you're okay with it? Does that ever happen, or do you still kind of stay within the concept art, within the color script and the color palette? So do you guys ever like go off script, so to speak?
I think it happens more often than it probably should. That it
Hmm.
completely sometimes it goes completely 180 half the time, because at the end of the day, it's what the director wants. So if the director changed their mind later on, then the early concept art would just pretty much get thrown out the window.
Hmm. So, as a lighting artist, you obviously have someone, more one or more people kind of directing you. Um,
Mhm.
are there any challenges that you experience during your experience? Because you obviously have quite extensive experience during this dialogues or conversations, when you're trying to make something and decide something. Are there any heads ups you want to give to people in some skills they might need to navigate this? Because it depends on the type of director you have, it depends on the studio. Do you have any thoughts on that when it comes to the how should I put it, the soft skills maybe that's involved in navigating, I want this, but no, the director want that, or don't have any idea, or they don't have time even to look at it, and then you're on your own. There's so many scenarios that can happen. Do you have any pointers to prepare people for this kind of type of work?
Yeah, I think communication is definitely the key here. Usually, when these kind of contradicting or like confusing scenario happens, I would usually talk to my lead or whoever's supervising me in the moment very early on to let them know that this could possibly be an issue, and discuss with them how they would want to approach it. And usually we'll try to bring it up in the review process, and everybody can pitch in and think what they talk about. And if a lot of time, usually just because we're in the end of the pipeline, this is really very late in the production. There's not much time to actually achieve everybody's uh, nice to have list. So if they're very insisting on it, I always believe to be honest. If they tell you something, if something that you really don't think you can do in this time frame, you should just tell them that it's going to be really difficult, or it's either you need more time, or you're going to do it will have to cut down like the quality or the whatever they're trying to do, because um, I don't want to give them a false expectation of this is possible every time. So, and also just like clear communication when there's anything that's blocking you, or just in general when there's a problem, just to make sure that my supervisor and the production side are prepared and ready for that. So when these problems kind of toward the end, like figure out how to resolve, at least we will be more prepared.
Okay, yeah. So I'm gonna sidetrack to our main topic a little bit, and we're gonna go back and forth like a ping pong conversation. I hope that's okay.
Sure. Yeah.
So a lot of our viewers obviously are in countries where there are not a lot of game studios, which means they do have to consider moving, to US, to UK. Um, I guess Japan would be a choice if you want to go there as well. France, I guess, is also a choice for some people. So you said you're an immigrant. So how long have you been staying wherever you are now?
I moved to America in 2009, so it's been 13 years.
15 years, and you're
13 years,
in.
yeah.
That's quite a
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
And you're originally from where?
I'm from Taiwan originally.
Taiwan. So let's talk about that. So you studied at Taiwan. You studied at Taiwan. I guess something relevant you studied, and you decided one day, hey, there's nothing in Taiwan. I'm gonna go to the US. Or what happened? What's the story there?
So I did my college education in the States mostly because I know that when I was younger, I already knew that I want to go into CG particularly as something I'm interested in. And then looking at the education resources in Taiwan, I knew that this is probably going to be very limited and not being where I would want to be or learn enough from the schools here. So I applied to the U.S. colleges and got in, and in that way, it's more help. It helps a lot for me to start living in the U.S. as a student, because the current law and immigration process, as a student that graduated a college or a master degree, is they will give you a little grace period to work without visa sponsorship. Well, technically, it's still need like the company will have to be registered and working with the government, but it's not as complicated as a visa sponsorship. So that really gave me a leverage to go into the country, live a little bit first, learn the culture, and how the also the hiring process of that country, and also have a little bit of time to actually work in the industry. But it is there are a lot of difficulties even after getting into the industry, trying to maintain a immigration status that I could constantly work, because it comes down a lot to luck, unfortunately.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So let's talk about it. Where do you want to take this conversation? 'Cause I consider there's a lot of different topics. It's like because there are people who are in a country and they kind of have to move. And I noticed from your conversation, but we had an interview with Karim 2 weeks ago, I think, and he's from Egypt, I believe it was, and he also got into Canada, I think it was, through first getting into a school, which seems to be a valid strategy, I suppose, is to get into a school first and then kind of take the long way around into getting into an industry. But what advice or ideas would you recommend based on your experience, and also challenges? As you said, there are other challenges involved as well, so let's take it one step at a time. You can take it at on your own pace, and go through go through your mental list of
Sure.
traumas. And that's just kidding.
Yeah, unfortunately, the current, I think the laws in North America, I think both Canada and America, to hire someone coming from a foreign country, they will have to prove that they cannot find this kind of talent or equivalent skills within their country right now. So
Oh,
this
that means
is,
I'm screwed basically. Okay, thank
well,
you.
you're fine. You will be amazing. They will be lucky to have you here. But so it creates a really high bar for anyone who is newer to the industry, more like an entry level to pass, because it's hard to prove that you have that kind of skill when there's other people around and probably already live in the country.
Mm.
So that's why it's particularly difficult to just jump from one country to into North America if you don't have previous experience. I
Mm.
think it would be a different story if you're industry veteran, when the company will probably more likely willing to sponsor you a work visa. But if you're still just an early stage of developing your career, this could be extremely challenging. That's why
Mm.
the going to school and then coming out and trying to get an entry level position in this country is a little easier than just jumping in from outside into this country.
Yeah, because you have time, you can study, you can network, you can kind of plan
Hmm.
accordingly, I guess, supposedly, and then kind of uh, build your long-term strategy of conquering the city and the world, basically, to apply, I
Hmm.
suppose. So how did it work for you, though? Because was it like straightforward? Did you actually think about it when you did this, or was it more like, I want to study in the US because there are no schools in Taiwan at the time that was relevant for you? Is that also a part of the equation for you?
I think I knew that at least when I was still in school, the U.S. was still the main hub for the industry, just in general the CG industry. I think it's changed a lot since, but um, back then that's why I wanted to go to school in the U.S. even though it was extremely expensive. So
Mm. That makes
um,
sense.
yeah.
So you did mention earlier that you had challenges, which also was related to how you look. Um, what did you mean with that?
I don't know if it's more relevant to how I look or
Or how you
just the fact
perceived,
that, yeah, how I'm perceived. Because,
or their
um,
knowledge of different
yeah,
culture, I suppose.
I personally haven't really felt like very bummy in my face type of um, discrimination, whether it's racial or gender. But there are a lot of hidden stuff that's not as in my face, but I'm definitely experiencing it. A lot of part that comes to it's probably a lot of factors that goes into it. I know that in the industry the wage gap is still really common, especially when a company keeps a very opaque pay scale system. That if you don't talk to your coworkers about like what the compensation levels are, um, like when I did, I was found out that I was underpaid for the same job doing the same thing with very similar experience prior to him.
Mm.
So and And when I found that was just extremely infuriating and frustrating because knowing that I'm doing the same work.
Right.
Um, yeah, and
So,
uh,
so if it's more hidden, how would you kind of make sure that other people are aware of that and kind of notice it? Because the thing is, not everyone is aware of these kind of things
mhm.
and notice. How would you kind of give people a heads up about this kind of hidden? How could you, how should we? I don't even know the word for these things because I agree with you. It is, for me, it's very hard to notice it. Like, often I need someone else to kind of point out that you're being treated differently for X or Y or Z reason. Or otherwise, I'm like often quite oblivious to it, and I'm just doing my thing really until someone else
Mhm.
who knows the difference a bit more than me. So, if you were to give, for example, me a pointer, imagine if I was to go there and
Mhm.
from your experience that these are the type of attitude, these are the undertone, subcontext
Mhm.
language record. What would those be, and how do you think I should navigate that kind of situation?
I think it always starts with an honest conversation with the peers. I was very fortunate to have coworkers that got along really well and we trust each other, so we're very comfortable sharing our compensation because we know that I think at the end of the day it helps everybody to know the compensation level. And that's how I found out I was getting paid less than some of my peers. So, and after that, I did talk to the management after discovering this. Unfortunately, they disagree on this issue. They
Mm.
disagree that this is due to uh, whatever they don't consider this. They don't consider this difference due to my. They want to say this because other people have different assignments, different performances. Even though I personally have records of performance reviews, and I don't think I'm underperforming at all compared to my close peers who are getting paid more. However, it was a very difficult thing to dispute when there's no evidence of
Mm.
this is why I'm getting underpaid.
That
So
makes sense.
yeah, so it was definitely. I think it definitely contributes to if you're someone in the industry right now who is experiencing burnout. This is kind of like something that definitely is just like a huge burden that you carry, knowing that you're doing the same amount of work but getting paid less.
Here's a fun fact, since we're talking about like different kind of discrimination, both challenges that people, as an immigrant, as a woman. Did you know, statistically, because I'm a short man, I'm 5'2". Uh, did you know short man below 5'7" earn less and get less promotion than tall men? Did you know that?
I would absolutely believe it. I haven't looked into this statistics myself, but I can see it, and
Yeah, I
I'm
was I was shocked because I was looking into some other stuff, about equality and kind of like pay gap and stuff, and I was also looking into like, w- my experience with people and seeing like, why is this guy getting a better opportunity, or he's like a younger person and stuff, and I was like, well, why, what am I doing wrong? And then I started like understanding just perception,
mhm,
how we perceive people, how we perceive strength or masculinity, this kind of stuff. And I was like, well, that's stupid. I don't like this. I can't do anything with my height. So the same goes for you as well. So you have, of course, you're Taiwanese and you have a skin color to it. You're also obviously a woman as well,
mhm.
and you're moving. So if you combine all of this, do you think you had some challenges or less challenges, or maybe you were lucky, maybe you didn't have as much challenges as your peers, because I'm sure you have, uh, other friends that are maybe experienced something and you're like, no, I don't feel that's the case, for you, right? So how is that for you?
I think it's a lot of it. It's kind of depending on what culture you come from. If you're not used to it, you might. I'm like I think when I first came to the states, some of the more inappropriate comments I probably wouldn't have picked it up because
Mm.
my brain didn't. I was younger and I wasn't aware of like these comments, what their underlying the implication could be. So, and as I got older, I started more realizing that some of the conversations or comments could be a little bit more problematic. So I'm a little bit more aware of it right now.
Mm.
In general, I do notice that it's usually harder for women to speak up in the meetings and be taken seriously unless they are in the leadership roles or been had a really senior role in the company. It still happens a lot nowadays. I think in most of the meetings I've been to in my career, I would say 80% of the time is men talking. Women usually don't talk nearly as much.
Is it because, they are not giving the opportunity, or is it just an unconscious, expectation that you shouldn't talk? How does that work, in the brain?
I definitely witnessed a lot of cases where men interrupting women in the middle of what she was saying, and it takes certain personality and training to be like, sorry sir, I was talking about this, please let me finish. A lot of time the conversations get taken over, so her point might be overlooked, or her opinion could be considered less valid because if only she's talked for 2 minutes versus the guy talked the rest of the 27 minutes.
Right.
So there's that, and
Now I'm
also
posing on purpose to make sure I'm not interrupting you.
no worries. This is just a casual
Uh,
conversation. No, this is just we're not a conversation flow. It's just yes. I also just like when there are women in leadership role in that department or in the company in general, women feel more empowered and encouraged to talk as well. And unfortunately, currently in the industry in CG or in tech, we are still seeing a lack of I know their efforts, but I think the adversity on the DEI can still be improved and help people who feel underrepresented to be more vocal about their opinions.
hmm. Just so you know, I don't know why it's not popping up in our, software that I'm using here, but Michael, that we your old colleague, and he says you're the best. And your other colleague, current colleague, young Louis, uh, just tag you with a lot of exclamation marks. So I guess it's like yay. And Justin, which is the only one that popped through, says Linda's great.
Oh.
So
Hi. Oh my goodness. So good to see you guys here. Oh, it's been a while.
so yeah, so people are paying attention. So yes. Also, you have a very difficult question, which you can choose to ignore or not. But the question is, I hope this isn't too political, but I was wondering if the conflict between Taiwan and China would affect your career and how. That's a tough one. I was like, should I message him and ask for clarification? But I thought I'd just throw you into it and see what you come up with.
Yeah, and I mean, my family are still in Taiwan, and it's definitely something that back in my mind a lot. If the thing comes down to it, what do I do between my career and my family? I'm still making. I still don't know exactly because how do you prepare for these kind of things? Like I don't know if anyone's ever preparing. Oh my goodness, there's gonna be war breaking out in my country nowadays.
Mm,
So I'm just trying to live my life and still try to advance my career as I would. But I am prepared that if it comes to it, I will probably have to take a step back and take care of my family if that's needed.
mm.
Because I don't want any regret in my life. And I know if I don't do that, I'll probably regret no matter how successful my career ends up.
Right. I mean, Korea, you can always get back to. I can tell you that much. For someone who's taken breaks and changed careers several times, it's not that hard once you get used to changing and doing stuff. I think I highly recommend. I think that's a good mindset. And I have a colleague. He actually lives in Ukraine. He's in our studio, and he is in Ukraine right now. So he sends me videos that he's hiding in the basement and with his kids. I'm like, whoa, that's quite heavy. So I already know someone who's in this situation and trying to get out of Ukraine and back to the UK. Hopefully, he's also the only VFX artist we have. So
Oh
we do.
no.
So we depend on him quite a lot. So it's definitely a tough one. So I think it's an interesting question that he asked that, because when he asked that, the Taiwan China, I was immediately thinking about my friend and colleague in Ukraine and all that kind of thing. So I don't
Yeah.
think it's too political. I mean, it's my YouTube anyway, so I'm saying it's not too political. So that's all right.
Yeah. Yeah. I hope your
But,
colleague's doing okay. I'm really sorry that he has to go through this, and I hope he's doing okay.
I'll find out in on Monday. Hopefully, he has a new message that I know he's okay. Because he actually, I think he lived in East, but he was smart enough to move to the West
Mm.
to give himself time before all of this started. So he was quite like ahead of everyone else. But then Putin been Putin decided to go all in. So now we have to plan accordingly. But yeah, it's definitely something I pay attention to, and uh, it is a relevant topic because obviously these people are going to be immigrants too, and they're going to be moving around looking for work and everything as well. So using your experience and being in the US, which is historically tough. This is a racial country. There's a lot of racial hypocrisy, and there's like a lot of tension in different places. Can I ask you which state you live in?
I currently live in California.
California. Do you feel in general outside of work when you're moving around, and do you feel that that's an issue there, or do you feel like safe and non-judgmental, or do you still feel there's a subcontext when you move around and go on with your daily life?
Yeah, I think right now, after the pandemic, being an Asian, especially a woman, kind of put me into a different mindset because there are a few cases of, unfortunately, violent attack on the community. So I definitely try to be a little more careful of like if I'm going by myself and to make sure be like it's the right time and mm, just be more awareness and but at the same time I don't want to live in fear. I do want to believe that people in general, um, I think people most of the time are good people. So um, we just need to. We still have to go learn and grow a lot as a, I don't know, as a species together, maybe.
Yeah.
But I think when I move around in America, it's definitely something I pay a little more attention to the area I live. If they're friendly to more marginalized groups, because
Hmm.
the U.S. is 50 states, and every states have very different policies and very different communities. So I do tend to I gravitate towards communities that are more diverse, if it's possible, since I do feel more comfortable in those areas.
Hmm.
However, I did live in the South, in the U.S. for quite a while, which did not have as big of an Asian population, and I also met a lot of lovely people. So I think it's a different experience everywhere, and I don't think I would limit myself by that, but it's definitely a consideration. It has to be. It's not. It's There's limitations, but I have to be careful.
Right. I was trying to find this volunteer stuff that I I also joined myself, which is like it's game development support for like young people, and they are
Mhm,
minority. And you can like be a mentor there. Basically, you don't get paid obviously, but it's like you help other people with minority background. And I'm a mentor there as well. I was trying to find the information just to share it, because again it's relevant
mhm,
to people in general, but I think also people like us who have the experience and want to make sure that other people similar to us do not go through the same challenges, and the looks and the comments that also comes here and there. But again, I think it's different for you as well. As you said, you are a person of color, but you're also a woman, which is like double whammy on top. Boom, it's like different things you have to pay attention to. But if it's any if it's any I mean, I have a white female flatmate, and she also have to be in the UK. She has to walk around and be careful anyway, and she has to call someone all the time just in case something happens. They're talking on the phone, so I don't really think it matters where you live. I think a lot of people will have this fear, even if it's not really there. I think a lot of people will just have it until they feel safe. But you've been there 15 years. Do you think it's better now in the work area? You're uh, applying to new jobs when you were switching? Was that like a difficulty? Did you get turned down a lot? Do you feel it was because you were a woman or person of color or your name? Because I know for a fact that when we apply with our names, people judge already just by seeing
mhm,
the name, and which is why also recruiters, they actually recommend you not to put pictures
mhm.
in your CV and stuff, which is something I used to do many years ago. After I got some training in it, to not do it, because the minute they see your picture or your name, which unless you change, is a bit harder, they judge you. Have you noticed that yourself? That you felt it?
Um, I think the biggest issue is if it did happen, I wouldn't know.
Yeah.
If I
But did
never
you ever?
go,
So you never felt it like on deep down. You were like you heard some rumors, or you kind of notice
I
there's
think
not a lot of people that are of color in the studio, maybe, and then
I think this is when the unconscious bias kicks in, right? Because a lot of time recruiting managers and hiring managers, they, I believe they are not consciously making these decisions. Is the implicit bias that kind of like, oh, maybe they have the assumptions that kind of kicks in that just okay, maybe this is not the person I'm looking for. So they would never, they probably wouldn't, they would probably never tell us that this is the reason. And but it takes training for these hiring manager and recruiting managers to realize that the bias does exist, and they have to actively combat it. And that comes down to either evaluating their hiring process or looking at their candidate pools and
mm,
make active efforts to make sure that they're getting the proper candidate if this is something that they want to improve on. So um, so I tend to when I apply for companies, I try to ask some question about their DEI efforts. If I keep saying DEI, which is diversity, equity, and inclusivity. Because if the company are consciously trying to improve on these areas, usually it's an environment I would feel more comfortable in. And when I interview, I pay attention to if there are any women or marginalized group they are in the leadership role who I'll be directly working with. because unfortunately this industry is not. It's just historically speaking, we still have a long way to go, and a lot of time if this room looks the same, I don't sometimes don't know where my voice would fit in this environment.
Hmm. That's interesting. Where I work, Interior Nights, it's 50% men and 50% women.
That's
Uh, s-
excellent.
which is very rare in the world generally. It's one of the companies that has managed to do it for like 4 years non-stop. Uh, its CEO is woman, the head of production is woman, a lot of the leads on top are women, and yeah, so that's where I work, and I think there's no difference really. Well, actually, they are actually better when it comes to feelings and personal stuff actually. So they listen to you more if you have like non-work thing. They they accommodate, I think, a bit better than
Mhm.
male leadership, older male leadership. I would say. I wouldn't say the same for younger male leadership. They are
Mhm.
obviously much better trained now to deal with these kind of things, empathy and stuff. So that's a nice experience. So it's nice. Always look for jobs there. It's a good place. Good. A lot of people with different culture, different language. I work there obviously, so you obviously know this there. So that's a free marketing plot right there in case we ever grow. Remember, you have a question
Mhm.
which we kind of answered, I kind of not answered, but you can answer it specifically. Kushik is asking, how did you get placed at your first job, and what were the challenges that you faced as a beginner? So you were a like, you were something back in the days. Let's see. You can-
I think, yeah, my first job was definitely Blu Sky Studios.
Do you
Um,
include the internship as a job or no?
okay, if we were going to include internship, I was very fortunate that I was able to get an internship with Pixar when I was still in school. So that definitely helped me when I graduated. I was trying to get into the industry. So if I call it internship, then that would be Pixar. And the challenges I face as a beginner is just sometimes when the companies are like everybody, a lot of people apply for these companies. Sometimes you just get lost in the pool application. There are thousands of applications to these entry level roles, and there really is a chance of luck. Of course, your work will speak for yourself, and of course, your personality is will match. Whether that matches the company is looking for matters. But I want to say that if there's something you've been struggling with, don't get discouraged because there's just so many people, so many people. I've been there. I probably still go through it. The industry, there's so many people, so many talented, great people. Um, and I think we just have to keep trying because I know a lot of great artists who probably weren't as lucky as I do. So I started like big names. They started with smaller shops, but because of who they are and their work, they ended up to where they want to be. And they're amazing artists. They have an amazing career. So unfortunately, just to keep trying and um, hopefully that you're just improving during the process and get to where you want to be.
Yeah, never give up. And for everyone watching, stop being lazy. Click that like, click that subscribe, share while we're still live. You're watching for a reason. So, contribute. Doesn't cost you a dime. Thank you very much. Namaste. So cinematic lighting artists, what's that all about? Like, what's the difference between you and me being a game level artist? Do you know? Do you have an answer for that?
I think, well, my
Cinematic lighting are the best.
no, I think my current title just comes onto my current company. They decided to separate discipline to a different title,
Hmm.
so they have level lighting artists who are in charge of the pretty much everything, just background and gameplay. So they usually like the sets or whatever the level that they're picking up the players are enjoying. And the cinematic writers focus on the cutscenes. We'll inherit the level lighting that the artist did, and we try to polish it out and light the characters on top of that for the cutscene only. We'll work very closely together, and I think, yeah, both arts they have just beautiful, amazing work and talented people. So yeah, like especially now in the game industry, it's like the amount of work that the game artists put into the projects and the details. Like, oh my goodness.
That's true. I every day I feel like I can't keep up, and every day I'm like, yeah, I'm screwed. I can't keep up with this person, this person, this person, and this first person is younger, and I'm like, no, no, I'm happy for you, but I still feel screwed. So you have to be like positive for another person, but at the same time you're concerned about yourself.
Yeah,
It's
this
an
is one
interesting
like
feeling.
share your secrets, please.
Yeah.
How do you do this?
Yeah, yeah. Lighting bot probably isn't helping my future, is it? It's like, here's a tutorial, learn everything, and then we have these interviews. Yeah, this is what I did to get the job, and you can steal my job anytime. Thank you very much. That's kind of what we're doing. But yeah, I mean, you did mention a minute ago with that you're lighting on top of what the game. Would you want to explain that to the people a little bit? That workflow, that the kind of approach to lighting in your projects,
Sure, yeah.
because we haven't
This
talked
is
about it much.
yeah, this is just the current workflow of my current job. I can't speak for all the game devs out there. It's just how they decided to divide the work. So I will usually start after the level writers have at least some break setup that's matching roughly as or as closely as I could at that stage with the concept. So at least get a move and at least like the key directions, all that stuff. And the characters still being there, but because it's cutscene, they haven't changed. They usually will have a higher LOD and different settings that have to get a quality setting, a quality bar a little higher because which is just a cutscene. So we light the characters to their highest quality versus in the gameplay. Sometimes you have to sacrifice the quality a little bit to get a frame rate. But of course, we still have to consider frame rate. We still have to be like, oh no, this is over budget. Oh, which light do I kill now?
Okay, okay. So do you? Because let me give you an example. At Ubisoft, you have three different type of lighting artists. Technically, you have the dialogue lighting artist, which is
Mhm.
technically also the lighting artist in the game. It depends, and then you have the cinematic lighting artist, right? And then in that context, I remember we would like turn off some lights in the environment to kind of give space to the in-game cutscene, basically.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
then you have the actual cutscene, which is basically where you turn off all the lighting the game level artist did, and you just do your own thing. But is that the same type of workflow? Is it kind of different for you guys?
It's a little bit. It's similar because we do separate cutscene. Cutscene is cutscene, and then in-game cutscene we call IGC. That is what, like you said, in IGC is usually a little bit shorter, so it's not usually not as complex, not as long, like not a 2 minute they sit down and talk kind of scene. Usually it's like quick like tutorials or like transitions between like different gameplay. So those usually will keep whatever level lighting hat as much as possible because it pretty much is like transition to this cutscene and transition down right away. So we just try to keep to match the gameplay as much as possible and adding a few lights maybe just to enhance the character looks a little bit. And then that's done, you play it out to the second part of gameplay. Versus in cutscene, I will have a little bit more freedom to turn off some of the lights that environment lighting artists put in because sometimes it doesn't
So
work for my
rude,
cutscene.
so rude. Just
I'm
taking away
sorry,
someone
I do
else's
feel
work.
bad. And sometimes their lights work great, but when the character is standing in their lights, like, no, this doesn't look good. I have to turn it off now.
It's all right. It's all right. So I mean, would you say it's two different specialty or no?
I personally feel like lighting is lighting.
Hmm.
We all have the same goal, which is achieve the mood and narrative. So um,
So you
it's
would say anyone who wants to switch shouldn't be concerned. Basically, they
yeah,
should be able to do it.
I really believe that if there's something that you craft that you really love and care about, you will shine in both areas.
The tool though, you use the same tool, same interface, or is it a bit different depending on the type of lighting, cinematic or game level?
In the current place I'm working at, they do have different tools and different workflow because traditionally, I think probably still true with the current model games is the level lighting you have to bake it
Hmm.
because ray tracing is not. They're getting close, but sometimes I mean, for a lot of games, it's not quite working exactly the way they want, so they had to rely on the older technique.
Right.
But it doesn't work for character because characters are moving around. You can really bake the light on them. So tools are different, but I've seen a lot of people who jump between the two disciplines, where sometimes level lighters will be doing the cutscene that's just within their level because it's the
Hmm.
only one of them, and then it's easier for them to do it than trying to find somebody else to handle that just tiny chunk. Vice versa of cinematic lighter, if you're just doing the like a trailer, then maybe the cinematic lighter can jump in with the lighting, so the low lighters have to go back and forth tweaking stuff just for that one cutscene.
Right. Right. That makes sense. And when you're doing the cutscenes and you're doing the lighting in the project you've done so far, is it does it have like real time 24/7 day night cycle, or is it you get to choose? It's like fixed depending on the story or the context. So how does that work in the project?
I think right now it's fixed. They
Hmm.
don't usually. I haven't worked on one of those that's like just live and like day night cycle yet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a bit easier for you than
Hmm.
at Ubisoft. It was a day and night cycle, so you had to predict that. So you had to do like all versions. So if the player was
Yes.
talking to the character during daytime, he had to have this 3 point kind of rig during daytime, and then if it was night, had to look at nights and a lot of exposure, a lot of stress. It's a different thing, I would say. So yeah, I
Yeah.
think that's good though. If you can just stick to one,
Yeah.
you're lucky there.
I do experience similar things right now where like the characters could be have different lighting scenario, and I'm just like, okay, I guess I have to light for it. I'm gonna have to guess it will work for all these eight possible scenario and see what happens.
Yeah, exactly. There's so what advice would you say? Because you obviously have again quite a few years of experience. You started out as an intern, and that's back in 2012. That's basically when I took a break full time from the industry and I started teaching game development instead. So while I was doing that for quite a few years, you were busy working your way up in Blue Sky Studios for a while as well. um do you have any advice, if someone's getting started, for example, or even someone who's junior or mid, want to become a lighting technical director, artist, lead? I mean, you've done it all apparently. So I don't know. So give us some advice. What to do?
Um, I
What
think
do you think? So someone's starting out. Let's start with that. If someone's starting out, what do you
mhm.
think is an underestimated skill that lighting artists forget, or you figured out later that you should pick up and learn? Like for me, it was other stuff like composition and
Mhm.
color that wasn't like obvious in the beginning for me, for example, right?
Mhm.
uh, what are your experiences in this context?
I think is for me. I think I'll generalize in college curiosity, just how everything is done like in the world of CG. Because I feel like as a lighting artist, I'm a lighting artist, but I also like to do some other stuff like the modeling and texturing stuff that's usually generalists will do. And the more I learn about these other things, it helps me to understand why I'm having this problem lighting this surface breaks like this one asset in my scene. Why does it look so weird? I don't know. It's like everything else looks okay, but this one doesn't look right. So if when I start doing more of the other discipline stuff, or when I learn more about how they're doing stuff, I can probably better understand why am I having this problem. And even if I cannot fix it, I would have that idea of who to talk to or how to approach resolving that. And other than that, I think
That's a good one.
yeah.
No one has said that in all of my episodes.
Oh
So that's a new advice right there, golden advice.
yeah, and I think just be kind and be generous and empathy for the people. I understand that as a lighting artist at the end of the pipeline, sometimes things get crazy, and sometimes we see the sides that some people can show a little bit unpleasant side when they're under stress.
Mm,
Um,
it
and
happens
yeah, it happens. And I think being kind
once a
and
year.
yeah, being kind and happy and have like and care for people, I think will go a very long way in the career because people will always remember.
So that's interesting.
Hmm.
Because would you say if you're a lesser skilled lighting artist,
Hmm.
whatever that means to the person listening right now, would you say they are more likely to get an opportunity if they are more, kind, respectful, or likable, so to speak, versus someone who is like actually very good and people know that person is very good, but they're not that approachable, likable? Do you think which one do you think would have a better chance?
I think it will depending on what the project is looking for, right? If they really need somebody to get stuff done right away, and maybe for a short amount of time, maybe they will go for the more senior people and just get it over with and decide what happened after the project. But I always believe that if you have the right attitude and willing to learn, um, yeah, I think you will be a valuable contribution to any studio. Because
This is
yeah.
this is how I know. This is how you know if someone has leadership experience or lead experience. Is they don't answer one or the other. They find the middle answer and then they explain the true answer that they hidden. So that's very good. Very impressive. Um, you avoided my black and white question quite intelligently there. It depends on the studio, which is true. There are some people who will hire actually not that nice people because they want the best. And there are people who want not the best, but they want people who, fit in the culture and the company basically. That's quite true actually. So when you were at Blue Sky Studios, it was just one of your older experiences. Um, that's um, that's not in the game engine, is it? That's like Maya or Arn, V-Ray and those kind of stuff. Was that what you were using? Compositing and Nuke and all those stuff I don't even know about.
Yeah. Um, this guy, I think for about a few decades, they were run under proprietary software and pipeline. So they had their own renderer that was a ray tracer that was one of the oldest ray tracer. So they kept that for a while until toward the end they decided to switch to Renderman
Hmm.
and the USD pipeline. So the last 2 years we kind of went through a transition. But yeah, then back then I would do shadow lighting and then do just lighting, break some network passes, and do the compositing. Did a little bit of stereo work here now and then, very little bit, but yeah, it's a little bit different from the game.
So having done both, your different tools, your different industry, I suppose as well. Which one do you like now? Do you miss the old stuff that you did, or do you kind of find this one more exciting because it's new, maybe, or just because is it easier, less tools? I would imagine. My impression is when you work in animation movies, there's a lot more tools you have to keep track of and learn. While in games, luckily, if you can handle just a game engine, you're already on a very good track. Is that the same experience you have, and does that impact your current decision and your future decisions?
Yeah, that absolutely like that hits the spot right now because I'm just thinking, what do I want to do in the future? I've been in the both industry. They both have pros and cons, and I kind of want the best of both worlds, but clearly that doesn't exist. And so, yeah, I miss the level of polish I get to have in the traditional like CG offline render pipeline. Have a little bit more control and more time on tiny things. And as lighting artists, we kind of like we can noodle on small things for quite a while.
Hmm.
Versus in game engine, a lot of time in games because the player experience is the key. So, PS can't sacrifice that. That is the ultimate goal. And sometimes as an artist, like, oh gosh, okay, fine, I will do this, but not because I want to, but because I have to.
That makes sense. You could actually consider like virtual lighting, like Mandalorian type of projects, where you have
Mhm.
these LED screens and you're still using the game engine, but you're doing it more difficult. Maybe that's something for you to go into next, maybe in the
Yeah,
future.
at
I've
this
heard
point,
at
yeah.
least. I heard that at least Tom Betulaskli, I don't know how to pronounce his last name, but we had an interview and he does that and he's specializing more and more in it. And he did say to me that it was quite, nice and straightforward. And I wouldn't say he said it was easier, but it was definitely less stressful
Mhm.
doing that kind of lighting than game lighting and other kinds of stuff, basically. All right, people, here's a reminder. because we are almost the end of the stream. You are watching Lighting Bot. Don't forget we do portfolio review, so you can always join and ask for that. We haven't done it in a while because no one asked, so I'm not doing it. So we also do showreel in community highlights. I did stop it because there's a lot of work to do it, but we still do it to highlight people who post in our Discord channel. We do have an Unreal lighting tutorial on Lighting Bot, which is still pending. The person in charge make some more. I am doing Unity tutorial lighting because we have a huge community in Unity tutorial. Also because Unity lighting has quite a huge market in terms of 13-year-old, 14-year-old kids are learning Unity and Unity lighting. So that's why we're doing it for free to make it accessible for the younger audience so we can meet them when they're older. Don't forget, I'm building a new course, Lighting for Games. You can message me if you're interested. We have started the course. We're doing realistic lighting. So you can, message me if you're interested. Don't forget to keep watching videos. It's the largest collection of lighting artists community in the world. So keep watching, keep sticking around, do your thing. We do some clip on and off when I have time. So there are some smaller clips of these interviews that I do make if there are some golden nuggets. And I know people don't always have time to watch an hour. We did have a lighting challenge, which we will be releasing the result anytime soon when the judges are finished judging. And there will be a new lighting challenge. Well, if you want to find that out, you got to join Discord. And we also have lighting mentorship. So if you want to, get coached and stuff, you can either have it with me, or if you have someone specific you want, I can always get a hold of the person to do that as well. So that was an update for the people who didn't know that, including probably most people watching. They don't actually know this. Well, then you got to show me something, Turkey Master. You got to show me, and then maybe we'll ask you've had to join as well. Normally we have three people. Actually, I don't do it alone. Normally I have two other people who basically join the portfolio review, and we all kind of explore the different point of view and opinion about art. Because it is kind of subjective. A lot of lighting, I feel it's not really. This is how you need to do it, right? Because you have animation lighting, it can be exaggerated, more colorful, so you're more comfortable, doing other stuff. You have realistic lighting. So yeah, we do have three people when we do that. Yufan, any last words? Do you want to share your screen and show your art station so people can stalk you?
I don't have anything to plug. I usually, I actually am I delete all my social medias.
Oh my god, why?
Um, I
Who's
just,
who's annoying me? Tell me. I'll sort that out.
oh, it's just for my own mental health. It was definitely a period of time I was like, okay, I'm spending way too much time on this. So I did the things and I got rid of most of it. Pretty much all. So probably LinkedIn is the only thing left.
Was it like imposter syndrome kind of stuff, or was it like other stuff happening to you? Because I have talked to a lot of people. I should actually do a conversation and a video on that soon, I think, because a lot of people are exhausted by the content and the stuff that happens in social media. So I definitely can relate to that. Unfortunately, I can't do much about it because if I want Lighting Bot to grow, I gotta stay on social media. So
Yeah.
I gotta deal with that, unfortunately.
Yeah. I wouldn't say it's imposter syndrome. It's just, I think I love lighting and just all the stuff, but I also want to make sure my life outside the computer is
Mm.
is fulfilling and healthy. So, and it's for my mental health. So I decided to quit social media.
How is your mental? Is it good? You
Mhm.
better now?
I think right now it's hard because what's happening now in the world, but
Uh,
overall, I think I'm definitely doing better.
well, if you ever need help, you know where to find me. I'm always around to help people. And Turkey Master says, thank you, Yufan, for your time. There you
Thank you
go.
so much for being here.
If anyone else want to say thank you, now is your time because in a few seconds, or exactly 5 seconds, I'm about to steal you, fan, to have a after talk conversation to get our feedback, and then you guys are forever forgotten for the time being. Until next week. Next week I haven't made the banner yet because I'm doing a lot of my own mentorship as well these days. But the next one we have is 5th March. Corentin Wunsch is a senior lighting artist at Haven Studio. So we're going to talk to him. And then We have Luca Romel, which is 2 weeks from there. Is a principal lighting artist at Striking Studios. So we have a couple of people lined up already, but I'm moving to Baker Street, so we're skipping a weekend. I'm so sorry. I have a life too, which requires some attention sometimes, so you guys have to wait. So, Yufan, thank you so much for joining. Let's just say goodbye to all the viewers, and then I would like to just have a final talk with you before you disappear for your day. So thank you everyone for watching. Have a nice day and weekend.